Well, I want to welcome everybody to our Love Ideas Summit, and we're going to be having our caregiver conversation. It's a great opportunity to spend time with people that are experts in the caregiving space. You know, that's a big issue that we're being impacted, especially during COVID. And so I wanted to invite you to be part of this conversation. And I want to introduce our panelists. Of course, myself is Wayne Cannell. I'm the founder of Invisible Disabilities, and been living this caregiving life for almost 26 years, myself personally and professionally, as the organization has been around almost 25 years. We have Amy Goyer, who is AARP's caregiving expert and columnist and an author. Gary Barg, he's the founder and editor of Today's Caregiver magazine. And PK Bevel, who is the founder of Second Wind Dreams and the Virtual Dementia Tour. So I wanted to kind of reach out to each of you. So Amy, why don't you share a little bit about your background, and so people can get to know who you are?
Well, I guess the most important thing is that I've been a family caregiver my entire adult life, starting when I was about 20. My parents moved to Arizona from Ohio, where we lived, and my grandparents were all in Indiana. And so my parents were further away. My mom's mom did pretty well, but and I had cousins there. I was sort of the respite person for her. But my dad's parents, my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and my dad was an only child. So I spent a lot of time long distance caregiving for them in my 20s and early 30s, driving 6.5 hours. You all know how that is. Then my mom had a stroke when she was only 63. And then over years after that, my dad developed Alzheimer's. So I moved to Washington, D.C. to work with AARP, and I was traveling back and forth. And about almost 11 years ago now, I moved out here to Arizona, where I am now, to take care of my parents, because they both ended up needing 24-hour care. They lived in a senior community for 3 years, and then they moved in with me. And my mom passed away a year later, and my dad stayed with me 6 more years here in the home. He passed away just 2 years ago. So I've had a lot of varying roles. As we all know, there's a whole continuum of roles for caregivers. I've also worked in the field. I have a degree in music therapy, and I started out working in adult daycare centers and nursing homes, and I worked for the Ohio Department of Aging, worked for AARP full-time, and then when I needed that flexibility, I became an independent consultant.
Great. So PK, tell us about your journey.
Well, first of all, thank you for including me. I feel like I've just gotten moved to the head of the class by being among such esteemed colleagues. And I started serving geriatrics in 1983, back when chemical restraints, physical restraints, noise, smells were all over the place. And I came to it, I think, in retrospect, at 67 years, I came to it because I had polio as a child and was paralyzed from my neck down. And I know what it feels like to be ostracized. I know how people look at you. I get it, which is how I created the Virtual Dementia Tour, because I felt like we as caregivers really can't understand where our loved ones are coming from unless we've taken an opportunity to at least immerse ourselves somewhat in their lifestyle, in their shoes. So my work then, after working in long-term care, was used to do a psych assessment, and in it was the Geriatric Incomplete Sentences test, and I would ask the question, finish this sentence with the way you feel. I wish. And the residents were saying some incredible things. I wish I could go for a ride. I wish I could go to the graveside of my wife. I wish I could have a steak dinner. And that just blew me away. Now, I'm a little short on the intellect, and it took me a few years to finally realize that, dadgum, these are dreams for them. For them, that's a dream. So I founded Second Wind Dreams in '97. Created the Virtual Dementia Tour as part of my doctoral dissertation in 2002, and have just enjoyed every single minute of it in my new emeritus CEO position.
Well, thank you so much. That's amazing. So believe me, you're definitely should be here on this panel. I can tell you that.
I don't know about that. Amy, I was also going to say, I too am the caregiver for my father. He's 93. He lives with us. He has vascular dementia. And You're right. You can take all the classes you want to, but until you've done this by the seat of your pants, it's really hard to articulate what needs to happen.
Yeah, I understand. Right. So Gary, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Gary Barg. I'm founder and editor-in-chief of today's Caregiver magazine, author of 3 books on family caregiving as well. The latest one being You're Not Alone, which is about caregiving in the time of COVID. One of the things that we do is also these Fearless Caregiver conferences that we host in local communities around the country. And since 1998, we've hosted 287 of them.
Wow.
Unfortunately, this year we've had to postpone about 6 of them, but now we're taking everything virtual. So in the fall, we'll have a lot of different virtual regional Fearless Caregiver conferences, which should be fun. But one of the things I love the most about the Fearless Caregiver conferences was the advice, the wisdom, the support, the tips, the techniques that other caregivers have learned from their fellow caregivers. Because we always hold the events in one room with the experts being the caregivers as well as the panelists, the doctors, the lawyers, the executive directors of area agency organizations. But it's always the family caregiver who raises their hand and says, you know, here's how I figured this out. That always has that piece of the puzzle that 50 of the 300 caregivers in the room have been desperately seeking. So what we did was in the You Are Not Alone book, we put together those tips over the last 20 years, the advice, the support, you know, how a caregiver in New Haven 15 years ago told us how she got her loved one to easily accept home care. And we've shared that with family caregivers over the years at these events. So that, since that was missing, we put all that in the book. And now we hopefully caregivers can have the kind of communication and the kind of shared wisdom that they have at the live events, sitting in their living room easy chair. My caregiving started in 1990. My dad retired and developed bone marrow cancer, and mom became, you know, chief caregiver, you know, everything that goes with that. And immediately from being the 50-year spouse, love of life, business partner. And I was living, we're in South Florida, and I was living in Atlanta getting set up to do work for the 96 Olympics, doing some videos. And so I'd try to come in once every 6 weeks or so for a weekend, but you really can't tell. You really never know what's going on unless you're living through it. So in the summer of 94, I heard in her voice a crack. I just heard something. And I said, you know, I got to go figure something out, go in for 2 weeks. I have some time, help her out, you know, make some decisions, and come back to my life in Atlanta. Well, next time I went to Atlanta was hosting a Fearless Caregiver conference, because those 2 weeks were the most painful, dreadful, you know, night and day, life and death decision spiral that I was living through with mom. And right before I left, I told her innocently, you know, I can't believe that I came in these 2 weeks. Look at what you were going through. And she was dumbfounded, because what was the worst 2 weeks of my life was a normal 2 weeks in the life of a caregiver. So I came back to Florida to become a caregiver's caregiver, to help her as much as I can. We started today's Caregiver magazine, and then caregiver.com, and then the conferences and the books. And the reason I bring this up is because my caregiving was always in support of mom. I always call myself a serial caregiver. And so she was direct caregiver for my dad, direct caregiver for my grandparent, father, direct caregiver for my grandmother. And she was also, you know, she's written in the magazine. She comes to the conferences. People just love having her there. She'll talk to caregivers forever. And in June, she had a stroke. So now my sister, my brother, and I are doing round-the-clock care, caring for her. It's a direct caregiving as opposed to being a caregiver in support of her. And, you know, the PK and Amy said is absolutely right. This is the toughest, most loving job you'll ever take on. And I I've always respected and admired and adored caregivers, but never more than now that I'm doing it full time around the clock.
Well, I can tell you, when I met my wife in 1992, she was already diagnosed with primary progressive MS, and in the same year Lyme disease. So when we got married, we thought, oh, this is going to be just a little journey, and it's going to be gone and over with and stuff. And here we are, almost 26 years later, and even though I signed up for it, we didn't know what that really meant, signing up for, being a full-time caregiver. Absolutely. So, but what's amazing is everybody that's on this, this caregiver conversation is really taken what they've learned personally and used it to help others, because you find out that it's not just about ourselves, that maybe, as you mentioned, the tips and the tricks and those things can have an impact on the other people. And that's what we want to do, is to provide that. So I want to jump into a few questions here, and any of you can take this question. It's the impact of social distancing on the caregiver relationship, right? I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. How is that impacting that caregiver relationship, either, personally or professionally?
I'll jump in and start, and then you guys can jump in as well. One of the biggest things that I'm seeing is the relationship with the person they're caring for. A lot of it depends on where that person is. So if they have a loved one living in a nursing facility or an assisted living or even independent living where they have not been able to visit, it is impacting that relationship. It's impacting how they can advocate for their loved ones. It's impacting everything about the personal caregiving experience, because so many of them are experiencing grief, feelings of helplessness. I mean, it's hard enough to advocate for someone who's in a facility now you can't even go in there and see what they're doing, and making sure they're getting care, and also just taking care of those social needs of their loved ones, and that closeness, because many people aren't able to get on a video chat device, or maybe some facilities aren't helping with facilitating that conversation on video chat. So I think that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is, if you're caring for someone at home, you are really, really there with them. There's no breaks. There's no getting away. I can remember when my dad was living with me, and, I did the weekends by myself, and then I had help during the week so that I could work. And by Monday morning, when I went to work, it was kind of a relief. I mean, that was my respite. Work was my respite. And now they're not getting that. They're not getting anything. Many of them are not going to the grocery store even. So you're just so in it all the time. And,
Right.
and that relationship is challenged. Any relationship, we're all kind of stuck with people right now. And, any relationship is challenged when you don't get breaks and you don't have your usual coping mechanisms and all of that. So a lot of people's relationship with the person they care for is really, high strung right now.
Well, and I think about also the impact of COVID, right? I mean, I know my wife is extremely high risk, right? So I'm limiting my abilities to go out, and I do have to go to the grocery store, right? Or pick up, food at restaurants to go and those things. But having to take her to a doctor's appointment, I had to take her to one recently, and they're all day appointments. They're the, IV treatments and things like that. And she pointed out, she's like, you're getting a break from me. I mean, that's part of it, right? And it's true, because, I'm working from home, and the same, and so it's, you're constantly in that contact, and that respite, which we all know caregivers need dramatically, that ability, but because now we're so isolated in a lot of sense, we're not getting that respite. And sometimes, how do we, what do we need to find out to make a difference, right? Even if it's a conversation with somebody on the phone that gives you a break from something else, or going for a walk. I love to walk out. I'm in the country, and I go for a walk, just to get away.
You're bringing up something that I find interesting with families, and being one family caregiver. We just don't do a very good job of reaching out to other people for help. Even during COVID, to me, if, they have on a mask, they've been COVID free, and, dad's obviously at very high risk. I have lupus, I'm at pretty high risk too, but asking people to help us is something our families just are not doing and haven't. That's been the case. That's why some of this has been such a great, horrible secret from people. The stuff that we're dealing with is because we haven't been vocal. You know, heck yeah, can't a neighbor go pick up the groceries and leave them at the door? And when they do, you know, thank them and have a mask to mask 6 foot distance conversation. We're just not taking advantage of what we need to. And I will raise my hand and say, I'm just as guilty. I finally asked my brother to come help, who, you know, he's physically able to do that, but COVID was the excuse. And, you know, we had to get down and dirty with each other. You know what, Bubs? I'm in here doing the laundry and taking him to the telehealth things, which, by the way, my other point I wanted to throw in here is dementia. Throw on top of all of this, those people who are living with dementia. Amy, as you were talking about the long-term care environment, the preponderance of the elders and people in there are living with dementia of some type. So, you know, we have to kind of take a step back and imagine what this looks like for them. Now, 5.9 million people right now who are in one of the situations Amy was talking about. And we've yet to take much time to look at this entire situation from their perspective. What do the masks look like? What does the PPP look like? What does a person approaching you with a mask on to ask you to do something? What does that look like? We have to really parse some of that out so that we can make it at least somewhat positive for the person with dementia in a very scary situation.
I believe that we're living in a new normal. Gail Sheehy coined the phrase "new normal," talking about once you step into caregiving. Well, caregiving in COVID is a new normal. You put that on top of everything, and isolation is the killer in normal times for family caregivers and for our loved ones. So now we're enhancing that. And I think, PK was talking about telehealth. We've been doing a lot of news. Well, we do a weekly newsletter at caregiver.com that people could sign up for. And we're doing a lot of hands-on tips about living in the times of COVID. How you communicate with your loved one. How do you get the best results from a telehealth meeting? Because there are risks and challenges there about what the doctors can and can't pick up, and what I believe that the in-person meetings are always better, but we have to do what we have to do. And the stress that comes from being alone. Another thing PK was talking about was getting people to help. We have something on caregiver.com we call the reverse gift list. And we've had that for years, but we've updated it for COVID. And exactly that. What are the bite-sized, easy, manageable tasks that, for you have to do 20 of them a day. But if you can parse it out and say to your neighbor, next time you go to the supermarket, here's a little list, and maybe, you can get something free. Next time you go to the drugstore, here's a little list. Don't overwhelm them. Your relatives want to come by and do something. Sure, let them cook once a week and bring the food to the door. Or if you feel safe about having them come in and having them all masked and PPE'd up, maybe your loved one would love to see them. My mom adores obviously her great grandkids, and so we try to get them on FaceTime with her at least 3, 4, 5 times a week, and it perks her up, and it seems to clarify things for her. So the challenge that we have as caregivers in regular times with isolation has now been, exacerbated. And it's something that we have to look at and deal with. And if our loved one's living in a facility, how to work with that facility. Maybe somebody in the facility is going to be nice and let you use their phone to FaceTime with your loved one. There are obviously telechats and telehealths that you can do. Or if you're at home with your loved one, you can get some help. You get some family members in and just make sure they see other faces. it's just really important to pay attention to how intense a challenge this isolation is now that we're all sheltering in place.
And you mentioned, that we were talking about not being able to get out. One of the things that I'm hearing the most from caregivers is if they were members of an in-person support group, that was their primary support and just a huge part of their caregiving experience. And now they're not meeting in person. And a lot of them have started doing virtual things, phone calls, conference calls, video chats, Zooms, but some of them have not. And so, I moderate AARP's Facebook Family Caregivers Discussion Group, and we've got about 3,500 people in there right now. It's growing fast. We've only been in existence for a year, and with COVID, it's just boomed because everybody needs that support, and going online is one way to do it. And, they exactly, Gary, I so agree, the isolation is, we know it's bad for our health. It's the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day to our health. So, that goes back to your question, Wayne, about, how is this affecting caregivers' health? We don't even know yet the full extent of what this pandemic is going to do to people over the long term.
Right. In fact, I think about that with the stress myself, and I think about, stressed about going out, stressed about not going out. There's all these things that are impacting. Oh yeah, you said you haven't been around anybody, but I'm not so sure, right? And so, I mean, it was interesting because I was talking with my boss from I do IDA as a volunteer and my day job, and I was talking with my boss, and he's like, "So you really don't go anywhere, do you?" And I said, "No, I really haven't. I mean, I had to go to the dentist the other day, and it was like, I need to know everything, right? Because I don't want to take any chances whatsoever. And so, but I know it's impacting my health. I mean, my stress level's been through the roof. And you talk about isolation. I think isolation is the real killer in this whole thing for everybody is, and part of that isolation is that we forget when we're not a caregiver how important that touch is. And I would say we have forgotten, I know we talked about Zoom and we talk about, online, oh, I got 500 Facebook friends or something like that. Well, that's not, doesn't really help relationship wise per se. But I think we forgot the old fashioned telephone, really, to hear somebody's voice, just to call up and say, I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about your loved one, and it's not what are you doing? What are you not doing? Where it's this, how can I solve the issue? Because in most cases, they're not going to solve it. I mean, they're not going to solve dementia or depression or whatever on their phone call. But what they're going to solve is like, I care about you, can I do anything? You mentioned earlier about going to the store. This is something we talk about in Invisible Disabilities. Hey, I'm already going to the store. Can I pick you something up? Right. It's that, or I'm going to call you every Tuesday for 15 minutes. And I'm just going to say, can I pray with you? Can I find out what's going on? Can I just give you an encouraging word? Not, I'm going to fix what you're going through. And I'm going to want you to be positive about everything that's going on. It's like, well, it's not about that. It's not about being positive. It's, going through difficult times and talking about it is actually nice if people would listen, right? The problem is they don't want to listen, right? And I always say, well, the reason why the person wants to keep telling you is because you're not listening. If you listen to them and validate the difficulties they're going through, then they don't want to talk about it anymore. They really want to talk about what's going on in the world, what's going on, in the neighborhood, that's a big thing we've joined, there's a thing called Nextdoor, which is this online thing for your neighborhood. Wow, has that been amazing during this time? People are saying, I've got toilet paper extra. Does anybody need that? Those things that are helpful. But they don't know, as we mentioned earlier, they don't know that you need help. They don't know that maybe you just need a break for 5 minutes or an hour just to say, hey, can you just be available on phone while I run into town in case something does happen where they can reach out to you because I know you can get there faster than I can. So I think it's fantastic.
I'm a little concerned about the isolation. The byproduct of isolation is fear. And I'm concerned that once this is over with, we're going to have a tough time getting our elderly counterparts to go back out again.
Yep.
I'm already having difficulty even with Dad, who is, some days are good and some days are bad, going out for a walk. He's afraid that he might catch something. And, when people are isolated, they have a tendency to expound in their mind what is actually going on. And that then can turn into a true, almost paranoia. And so as far as thinking about what this is going to do or what some of the byproducts are, I'm very concerned about that, almost creating a PTSD kind of thing with our elders, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely agree. I think everyone, not just our elders, has a level of PTSD from this. This has been a traumatic experience and we are not done.
No.
And, and I agree with you. I think there's so many people who are, my nephew has anxiety and depression, and he had difficulty going out of the home before this. And now it's just magnified. And I think he's going to have a rough time, once this is over, trying to go out more.
Yeah, well, this is going to be the tough part about this is really helping people understand that, from an invisible disability standpoint, people always ask what that is. It's really the invisible nature of illness. And now all of a sudden, okay, COVID, that's invisible. Anxiety, fear, depression, isolation, all these things are happening to us. And what I think we're going to be soon to forget is that these people that are isolated at home, we're all feeling what they're feeling right now. So we're kind of getting that, it's kind of like the virtual dementia that you talk about, PK. It's like, we're all feeling it. We're all kind of getting the idea of what it means to be isolated and in fear and alone. What my fear is that we walk away from this and we forget. And those people that are now all of a sudden, and there might be more of them as we're talking about this now after this, who are either impacted from a health standpoint of the actual illness itself, getting COVID, and they came out of it and survived, or all the aspects of the relationship impacts, which is why we're having this whole relationship summit, right? That impact is going to be dramatic. Everybody at first thought, oh, great, we get to spend time with all our families, we get to see our kids and everybody. Next thing you know, it's like, oh my goodness, we're stuck with them for how many months, right? And that whole aspect. But we want to make sure that when we come out of this, and I want to hear this from each of you guys, what your organizations and your thought process as we start getting through this and we start moving to that new normal Gary's talking about, what are you guys doing as an organization and as people to say, how are we going to do it so we don't forget those people? We don't forget the caregivers now that all of a sudden weren't caregivers before in some sense. That's happening too, right? Those or the people that are now still isolated because of the fear, as PK was talking about, it's a lot longer time to figure out, because I'm even wrestling with that. When am I going to feel okay that it's okay for me to spend more time out? Good news is my day job's allowing me to work from home right now, but there's, they have people in the office. There's going to be a time where it's like, hey, we need everybody to go back, right? So how's that impact going to help? So you guys want to tackle that one about what are you doing as an organization and thinking about after this as we move forward?
I think that's such an interesting point, because on one hand, the way that my brother, sister, and I can actually have the 24-hour, oversight of my mom is that, my sisters can work from home now as opposed to going to an office. And my brother and I have different schedules. So we're able to package that. But, once that changes, we have to be ready for that change. Where do you pick up that coverage that you are able to do because you're sitting at home? I really believe that as we manage our loved ones' medications and manage their therapeutic protocols and their appointments and their doctor's appointments, we also have to make sure that we have a weekly schedule for social interaction. Like I said with my mom, we don't miss 3 or 4 times a week getting her up with her great grandkids, or another 3 or 4 times a week getting up with her granddaughter who lives away, or having friends interact with her. So because you could let that go by if you're dealing with the stress and the pain and the isolation and the intensity of caregiving, especially when you're sheltering in place. That is that is a medication protocol. I think that is extremely important, making sure that we stay however we can, virtually, telephonically, short visits, connected with the rest of the world as much as we can. And that's going to help when we transition back into, I wouldn't say normal times, but more regular times and more regular schedules, as opposed to just one moment we're sheltering in place, next moment everything is open, and you have to make decisions from there. I think you're exactly right, when you have to start now figuring out what your next steps are, as things possibly open up, as people are now being asked to go back to work. And that's part of what we do with today's Caregiver magazine, with the caregiver.com, and we're doing with the virtual conferences, is making sure those conversations, that advice, that support stays in the forefront. We just did where we're in the middle of doing a series called Caregiver Conversations, video interviews with experts. The first one we had Lance Robertson, the second one we had Grace Whiting, and at the same time take clips of the advice that we got from family caregivers in the conferences over the years, because we always videotape them, and also offer them advice and support and tools that they wouldn't know about. So these are like 15-minute videotapes that we've been putting out weekly for the last handful of weeks, just to keep the connection, just that people don't say, where is everybody? I'm now lost, I'm now isolated, I'm now just caregiving, I can't get out, there's no social groups, there's no senior centers, we have to do what we can as caring organizations to make sure that we keep those connections, as tenuous as they are, being mostly, in video or webinars or Zoom chats or telephonically. We have to make sure we plan that those connections are made multiple times every week, because that breaking the isolation is a key element of keeping our loved ones as safe and cognizant as they can be.
Great.
I'll just jump in. AARP really pivoted and threw resources and creativity into addressing the pandemic, and has created a lot of great resources. You can go to aarp.org/coronavirus and kind of find everything there. But one of the really amazing things that they did was create a site called AARP Community Connections.org. And if you go there, it's a listing of mutual aid groups. So these are people, and many of them did not exist before the pandemic, and they're people who in their neighborhoods and in their communities decided to band together and help each other. And so it's a listing of these groups and some advice about how to start one, the things they offer, so that you can go in there and say, yeah, I don't know a neighbor who can go to the grocery store for me, but maybe there's a volunteer who'd be willing to do that. So that, I'm sure, will continue post-pandemic, and I think it's going to be needed a long time. One of the really great parts of that AARP Community Connections is a program they created called Friendly Voices, and it's a friendly phone call. So you can sign your loved one up for a phone call, you can sign yourself up for a phone call, and volunteers are trained, and they just give you a friendly call. And
wow.
It's people, we've had a huge response with volunteers wanting to make the calls. And, so many people, the isolation, it really has helped. Again, that's another program I'm quite sure is going to continue post-pandemic, because it's needed anyway. It's needed for people who are isolated and stuck at home, and older adults who live alone and that sort of thing. Those, I think, are really great. The other thing is, what is post-pandemic? Is that really 6 years from now? Like what is that? We're going to come to a point where hopefully we'll have a vaccine and things will die down, but it's not going to be gone for quite a while. So AARP will continue to have resources like we have a tracking tool so that you can check in every state what the COVID cases are, what the COVID cases in nursing homes are that are being reported. They're not all reporting. And then things like what are the current visitation discrimination laws in every state. So you can, we have state maps, you click on that, you can find all of that information. And I think those are going to continue to be useful to people, and they're going to need to continue to have those resources. And AARP really tries to create online content and videos and tools that are in practical ways going to help people through this. One of the things that I've done a lot of talking about, and I wrote a column for AARP, is about how to keep your loved ones engaged at home. Like, you're going to run out of ideas, right? Like the things that you maybe were doing, taking them to the art museum, doing different things you can't do. So there's online virtual tours. There's online experiences where somebody teaches you something. You can look at nature pictures. You can play games. There's just so much you can do. So AARP is really trying to feed that information. We have videos, exercise videos that caregivers can do for themselves to take care of themselves, as well as with their loved ones. So just trying to kind of wrap around the caregiver and our older members, their whole, every aspect of their life, because the pandemic is affecting every aspect of our lives.
Thank you for that, Amy, because we're talking a lot and sharing with caregivers a lot about what this post-pandemic world would look like. Is telehealth going to be the norm? Is that a good thing? Should you go to your doctor's office as opposed to have somebody, sit across from you and be there live? Are we creating a whole different world coming out of this, or are we, relatively speaking, going back to the same thing? And I don't have the answer for that, but I've seen your tools on AARP dealing with this issue, and I think they're terrific.
Yeah, there's a whole section on telehealth now, and I know AARP is advocating for that to be able to continue post-pandemic, because it is so helpful to so many family caregivers. And I really am a big fan of mobile doctors and mobile healthcare. I had all the doctors coming to the house for my parents, and they got x-rays and swallow tests and ultrasounds and EKGs and everything at home. And a lot of people don't even know that's available. So that's another thing we're trying to let people know about.
Yeah, and that's one of the things at Invisible Disabilities that we're really trying to do is we're not trying to create the what you guys are doing already. We want to showcase what you're doing, right? We have a thing called Programs for People, and it really is about, we want to come alongside all these great organizations and say, look what's out there, look at these amazing things, and point people to it so that they can get those great resources.
Well, what we're doing is a little bit different. I think people want to help deal with help with caregiving and help with, I think people's basic need is to help others. So when I founded Second Wind Dreams, that's one of the principles I founded it on, was knowing that we could make dreams come true, but it really would take the people around our elders to make that happen. And turns out people really do want to help with that. So our time has been spent finding more ways for our volunteers to stay engaged with our elders. So we have Cards of Light, which is continuing to go on and will continue after the pandemic, where volunteers create cards. We give them a list of the nursing homes to send them to in packs of 25. Wow. The nursing homes so appreciate it, assisted living, home health as well, and hospice. So Cards of Light has been huge. Also, for the virtual dementia tour, we have developed, since empathic person-centered care is a big deal to us, and walking in the shoes of other people in order to really understand where they're coming from, we've developed a series of simulations of visual imagery that allows a person to kind of go through what it feels like I mentioned earlier, when someone approaches you with a mask on and asks you to do something, what that feels like, what that looks like. So we have a package of those out there as well. In addition to that, we've written a number of articles that are on our website, secondwind.org, about COVID-19 and telehealth with regards to dementia specifically. Telehealth is a little harder for people with dementia. They don't understand what all that means and what those pictures are about and why they can't be where they're supposed to be to talk to the doctor. In fact, I've heard of some family members having trouble with their loved ones during telehealth because they don't believe it's really the doctor. And so they won't engage at all. So there is that piece that's extremely difficult. So we've written a number of articles on how to deal with that and how to make it as comfortable as possible in this difficult time. And I'm not a very good prognosticator. I'm a kind of ready, fire, aim kind of girl. And I do feel like, though, what we're dealing with right now will continue. I have every faith that people want to do better. People want the idea of being able to pitch in and help. They just haven't known how. So we're continuing to make dreams come true in all of the environments that we have. We find out what the dream is, we cut the check instead of having the volunteers go in, or the volunteers bring the donations to the nursing home or assisted living or home health. And they make a big party out of it. I think for Second Wind Dreams, this is just the beginning. I think for the first time, people are starting to realize that dreams are important, and dreams for our elders doesn't look like dreams for you and me. A dream may be as simple as a new belt because their pants are falling down. They can't go get the belt. They don't have the money for the belt, and nobody's gonna bring it to them. All of a sudden, that's a dream. So I think the pandemic, if anything, may help us shed more light into what that really looks like.
No, I really appreciate that, PK. You know, I think about the people that actually come to our organization. It's actually 85% of the people that come to our organization are women 35 to 55. And it's a very interesting group of people that a lot of them were career oriented. They have college degrees. They raise families, and then all of a sudden illness struck them in this, strength of their life, in their 30s. And so I think the idea of the wishes, but you're right, little things make a huge impact in people's lives. I mean, we talk about that even with things like accommodations for businesses, right? It's always something it doesn't cost them a lot to do, but it's something simple to do to make a difference in somebody's life. And so we're going to kind of wrap up this conversation here, but I want each of you to just kind of share, give us one or two things that the people who are listening to this can do, that is going to have that impact, that's going to, make maybe a change in, as two things I want to think about. One, them as a caregiver. So what would that one thing they could do as a caregiver, and what would the one thing they can do for the person they're caring for, right? So whoever wants to jump in and do that, that would be great.
Well, to me, I think the one thing that can be done right now is for us to flex that empathy muscle. When I'm having a tough time with Dad or a colleague or all the issues we have here at work and people coming back to work, I have to step back and look at things from their perspective for just a beat. Where are they coming from? Why is this hard for them? Why did Dad yell at me this morning? Could it have been because blah, blah, blah? And once I can put on that empathy muscle and really flex it and look at him from that perspective, as well as other people, even in our social climate right now, empathy would sure go a long way to being able to take care of some issues. And I sure hope that doesn't go away.
Great.
No,
what would you do for what would you say to the person that you can do for the person you're caring for?
Be empathetic.
Okay, great. It works both ways. Awesome.
It does. It really does.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
If I'll just jump in. We always tell caregivers to be the CEO of Caring for the Loved One, Inc. You're in charge. I mean, for me now, with Mom having so many different doctors, that this one changes this medication, that one changes that medication. I'm actually, every time something changes, putting a new form together and sending it to all the doctors who are going, oh, I didn't know that. So you have to be the CEO of Caring for Your Loved One, Inc. But also, I think that goes very well with PK's empathy conversation. It's, you have to find a way to not be so totally responsive to what your loved one does that triggers you, because you are a CEO, you are managing this incredible organization, the most important organization you'll ever manage, the one keeping your loved one safe and well. you have to make sure that you understand the intensity of the family dynamics that happen when we're all locked in together. You know, I always say, if somebody said something to you in an elevator that you wouldn't even think twice about, but if it's something that your dad or your mom said to you that triggered you, your head explodes. You have to make sure that you have that emotional distance, that you are understanding that this is a job and you are dealing with a challenging situation, and you're all in this trying to make it work as well as you can. And also, many times you can even tell your loved one with cognitive challenges that hurt me. When you said that was something I didn't appreciate, and here's why. So instead of keeping that from them, I think it's important to share your feelings as well. And we've found that to be something that works.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, but you're right. It's the understanding, the listening. This is a time for us to be the most gracious, which is the hardest thing, right? Because we really want. You're right. You're spending time now with people that, like an inordinate amount of time. Even as a caregiver, you may have not spent so much time with somebody, right? So more and more time. But to really be gracious and remember that the stress is impacting everybody, the anxiety is impacting everybody. So whatever they're saying or doing, to step back and say, okay, it probably is tainted by all those things right now, right? And despite the people that say, oh, I got this is easy, I got it, no problem, it doesn't bother me, it does. I mean, you can't, we're at a point in society, in the world right now, where anxiety is part of what we're dealing with. So we need to somewhat not embrace it, but understand that it's part of what we're going through. So Amy.
I've always encouraged caregivers to think about taking care of themselves as not being selfish, just being practical. And now in spades, and during COVID-19, it's even more so. When I was a caregiving and most intensively for my parents and my sister who lived across the country at the same time, I learned to look at it like my car. My car can't run on empty. And I had this aha moment when I filled my almost empty car up with gas. And then as I pulled away, I thought the car actually runs better on a full tank of gas. Well, duh, right? So I started thinking about ways to fill my tank. And that's the way I look at self-care. And, there's a variety of ways to do that. And now during COVID-19, we have to be even more creative. Some of the things that filled my tank, I can't do now. And so I have to find other ways to do that, but look at it as a very practical thing. It's not selfish to take care of ourselves. You've got to keep putting fuel in so that you have something to give and nurture your soul. And so that you have that emotionally and spiritually and the ability to give to others. So I would say, really reach out to other people, connect with other caregivers, be creative about, really focusing on even the very little things like making a good cup of coffee and how that fills you up, and be very consciously and intentionally aware of that. For those we're caring for, you wanted to know, I think one of the most important things right now is to understand that grief is a big part of this whole pandemic. Losses, anticipated losses, the fears, all of the things that are going along. And so I think having compassion and understanding, as you two have both said so well, is having that empathy, that compassion, that understanding where that person is coming from. I'm doing a lot of coaching caregivers around behavior changes now. And they often think that their loved ones aren't really affected by this because they weren't that active before anyway. And they aren't really getting down to the minutia of it, that it actually is affecting their lives as well. And they're watching TV or they're hearing the stories and they're afraid. So really understanding that the pandemic affects them as well. And try to come up with new things to do. I think keeping people active and busy is so important, and just get really creative about it. Yesterday I was posting in the Facebook group. I found some pictures of my parents when they were in high school and college. And I thought, oh, I wish they were here for me to talk about with them and they could tell me stories. And so I posted those pictures and said, hey, talk with your loved ones. Pull out pictures. That's a great activity to do right now when you're stuck at home, and get them to tell stories. And one of the caregivers said she did that, and her husband remembered people. She was astounded that he did. And so just getting really creative like that with ways to connect and interact and stimulate.
Well, that's fantastic. One of the things I want to say is, also for the person who we're caring for, some of them, aren't dealing with dementia or whatever. They're younger. Sometimes they're children. Sometimes they're, young adults or whatever that but is providing an understanding that yes, the caregiver does need a break sometimes too. And my wife's really good about that. Sometimes I tell her, I said, I'm going into town because we live in the country. I'm going into town to pick up dinner. Just because I got to go into town and get in the car and go for a drive. I mean, really or go to Starbucks or something. It seems like a waste of time and a gas and money and all that stuff, but I'm like, I got to go take a break. Right. And sometimes the person who's being cared for needs to give the person the ability to do that it's okay for them to also, make a phone call. It's okay for them to, to take a break for a little bit, and so that's a big part of it too. Well, I think it's just fantastic. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I used to get my dad out and I get him in the car and we go to Starbucks and do the drive-through and get cake pops and lemonade or whatever, just to get out of the house because I needed that. And it was good stimulation for him. And I think a lot of people, you mentioned, PK, that your dad was kind of reticent to even take a walk. People kind of forget that they can get in their cars and drive around. And it is a change of pace. It's a break. So I think that's a great thing to do.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation, and I know that the conversation will continue. Each of you and your organizations and the amazing stuff you're doing, and we're, through Invisible Disabilities, we're so honored to partner with you and figure out ways that we can impact caregivers. During this relationship summit, we've brought in a bunch of amazing experts such as yourselves, as well as other relationship experts, authors, and there's a business relationship roundtable. There's all kinds of different aspects. There's some writers talking about it and how they write about it in their fiction and how it impacts. And it really is about a time to think about relationships and the benefits that we can provide to them, and to use this as a catalyst for good instead of the difficult things that we're going through. But for people to understand who are watching this, that they are not alone. We are here to help. They're not going through this by themselves, even though that isolation feels real, because it is in a sense, but they need to understand that they are not alone and they're not the only people going through this. And we're here to provide that insight, to provide those relationships, and to just provide hope. And to me, that's what hope is. Hope is when somebody else reaches out to you in the middle of what they're going through is difficult and they share it with you, right? And how they can impact. Hope is not that, the cure of the illness or whatever necessarily. The hope is the humanity saying, you matter, you have value, I care about you. I just want to call and say hi to you and let you know that I appreciate you. So, and I want to let all of you know, Amy and PK and Gary, that we so appreciate you from our organization to be part of this caregiver conversation. And we're really thrilled to the future to see how we can come together as well and to make a difference. So thank you so much for being part of the Love Ideas Summit and a caregiver conversation. And we look forward to how people react as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone.